Ukraine caught 27 Russian vehicles refueling at dawn. Then the first blast tore the clearing open. 5:54 a.m. An artillery round struck the MA's fuel tanker, triggering a fireball that climbed nearly 70 meters and lit the forest like daylight. Flames rolled across the tree line. Engines sputtered, and the entire formation broke apart in seconds. Yet the strike didn't come out of nowhere. Just 6 minutes earlier, at 5:48 a.m., a Ukrainian drone had already scanned the site. 4 T-80 tanks, 3 BMPs, dozens of trucks, and a 36,000-liter fuel carrier packed tightly in a narrow clearing only 3 kilometers behind the front. Heat signatures glowed in tight clusters, perfect conditions for a precision hit. A routine refuel turned into a trap the moment Ukraine saw the pattern. If you saw that first blast, what's the first thought that would hit you? 5:48 a.m., September 2025, Eastern Luhansk. The forest was still dark, the first light of dawn hidden behind a low band of mist. Through the drone's thermal lens, the clearing below appeared as a cluster of bright shapes. 28 Russian vehicles, packed tight around a 38,000-liter fuel carrier. Engine blocks burned between 320 to 390 degrees Celsius, forming a heat map that cut through the treetops with absolute clarity. From a command post 41.3 kilometers away, the Ukrainian operator zoomed in. Every signature was clean, unmistakable. 5 T-80 tanks, 3 BMP-3s, 2 BTR-82s, and more than a dozen support trucks, stationary, exposed, and following the same routine they had repeated 7 times in 10 days. The operator switched to wide-angle view. The drone had been tracking this point for 4 consecutive days, recording arrival times, guard rotations, idle cycles, and the exact moment engines shut down. The pattern was perfect and predictable. He counted again to confirm. 28 vehicles, clustered in a 60-meter pocket of forest. No electronic interference, no dispersal, no camouflage. A refueling routine that had become a habit. At 5:50 a.m., he transmitted the final confirmation code. Across 2 artillery positions, crews tightened straps, adjusted elevation, and locked-in coordinates already rehearsed the night before. The strike team had been waiting for this exact alignment. Vehicles concentrated, engines hot, movement minimal. 5:54 a.m. The first Ukrainian artillery round tore through the sky and landed 47 meters from the MA's fuel tanker. A ranging shot. Silent, precise, unmistakable. Russian crews froze. For 2 seconds, the clearing went still. Then everything unraveled. Engines roared. A T-80 BV's heat signature spiked past 610 degrees Celsius as its driver tried to reverse blindly. A BMP-3 lurched forward with its fuel hose still attached. Guards shouted conflicting orders. No one knew where the danger was coming from. They had no more than 20 seconds to react. The second salvo hit before any order could be issued. 7 shells, fired from 2 Ukrainian batteries, impacted almost simultaneously. 3 landed directly among the clustered vehicles. 1 struck the tanker's fuel cell. The fireball shot over 65 meters into the air, turning the clearing into a flare visible even through morning haze. Shockwaves rippled across the tree line. Metal twisted. The forest floor shook. In the command post, the drone operator gave a calm confirmation. Target locked. Ukraine had rehearsed this moment for 72 hours. Every coordinate inside the clearing had been preloaded. Every firing angle matched to Russian movement patterns gathered over 9 days. Nothing was improvised. Every 14 seconds, a new salvo descended. Steady, layered, unavoidable. Vehicles tried to reposition, but the narrow road allowed only single-file movement. Flames blocked the exit. Trees choked the flanks. The cluster had become a trap. Let me ask you something. If you were in that clearing right now, with fire ahead and shells landing behind, what would your first instinct be? Because what happens next is the moment where escape becomes impossible, and the forest road turns into the deadliest choke point of the entire strike. The forest clearing was no longer a refueling site. It had become a sealed kill box. By 5:55 a.m., the tanker's explosion had thrown burning debris across the only access road. A 28-meter section of the track was now covered by twisted metal and fallen trunks. Any vehicle attempting escape would have to push through wreckage glowing above 900 degrees Celsius, an impossible barrier even for heavy armor. Inside the chaos, Russian vehicles moved without coordination. A T-80BV reversed too quickly and collided with a BTR-82A, locking both machines at a crooked angle. Attempts to free them only made the blockage worse. Another BMP tried to angle through a narrow gap, but a second Ukrainian salvo landed 11 meters from its hull, forcing the crew to abandon it instantly. Above them, the drone operator switched to high-contrast thermal. Dozens of heat signatures flashed erratically across the screen. Crews sprinting for cover, engines overheating, ammunition cooking off. At 5:56 a.m., a shell struck a T-72's engine plate. The resulting pressure wave tore open the rear compartment and scattered fragments into surrounding brush. Ukrainian artillery crews maintained a strict rhythm. One firing cycle every 13 to 15 seconds, alternating between two batteries separated by 9.4 kilometers. The staggered timing created overlapping impact zones, leaving no safe direction. Smoke thickened as burning diesel and shattered pine mixed into a gray layer that clung low over the forest. At 5:57 a.m., another critical blow landed. A direct hit on an ammunition truck ignited stored propellant charges. The blast sent shards flying across a radius of 70 meters, damaging two nearby BMPs that hadn't yet caught fire. Secondary detonations crackled through the trees like a rolling storm. Russian commanders positioned 3.2 kilometers away attempted to coordinate a relief push, but radio interference and the pace of incoming fire made it impossible. Reports came in fragmented, blocked road, vehicles immobile, loss of visibility. No unit could advance without driving straight into a narrowing corridor already marked and targeted by Ukrainian observers. By 5:58 a.m., the clearing was fully sealed. Every movement, every attempted maneuver, every ignition of an engine only exposed new heat signatures to the drone watching overhead. The trap had closed, and the next phase of the strike was about to begin. At 5:58 a.m., Russian commanders finally grasped the scale of the disaster unfolding just beyond the tree line. Fragmented radio calls, distorted by smoke, shockwaves, and interference, spoke of blocked vehicles, damaged armor, and crews unable to reposition. To them, the clearing sounded less like a refueling stop and more like a collapsing front. They ordered two reinforcement tanks forward, a pair of T-80B VMS positioned 3.3 kilometers away. Their task was simple on paper: reach the clearing, break the obstruction, pull survivors out. But every meter of the forest road had been mapped by Ukrainian reconnaissance. Every bend, elevation change, and choke point had been logged across 4 days of surveillance. At 5:59 a.m., the first rescue tank rounded a narrow corner. An anti-tank detachment hidden 218 meters above the road fired a single missile. The launch was quiet, just a brief plume drifting through the underbrush. Seconds later, the T-80 BVM erupted in a flash that lit the ridge. The crew never identified the source. The second tank halted instantly. Its commander saw the burning wreck ahead and recognized the terrain for what it truly was: a controlled ambush corridor. He attempted to reverse, but the road was too tight for a clean turn. Smoke drifted across his optics. Heat readings spiked around him as burning diesel from the main clearing drifted downhill. He radioed for artillery support, but Ukraine had already shifted positions. Their batteries were operating in rolling intervals, striking, relocating, striking again, making counterfire nearly impossible. Russian support guns were stationed over 14 kilometers away, too distant to deliver timely precision fire. By 6:01 a.m., the rescue attempt had collapsed. No reinforcement could reach the clearing without driving through a lane already marked, measured, and waiting. The trapped vehicles were now on their own, and Ukraine moved to deliver the final phase of the strike. By 6:04 a.m., the final Ukrainian salvo struck the northern edge of the clearing. When the echoes faded, only a heavy static remained, diesel burning, ammunition cracking, metal deforming in the heat. No vehicle inside the kill zone retained operational capacity. The once organized formation had become a field of overturned hulls and scorched outlines. Ukrainian operators switched the drone to mid-altitude standby. Thermal signatures inside the clearing had dropped sharply. Most engines had failed. Crews had fled. And secondary detonations were fading. The fire from the tanker still burned at temperatures above 1,200 degrees Celsius, leaving a crater large enough to swallow an entire BTR. At 6:07 a.m., ground teams advanced. They moved slowly, stepping across fragments and shattered road sections that remained hot to the touch. Unexploded ordnance lay scattered across a radius of 160 meters, forcing soldiers to navigate with caution. Each vehicle was approached from the flank, photographed and tagged. Serial plates, chassis numbers, and turret markings were logged for intelligence records. Inside a destroyed command vehicle, they uncovered partially intact field maps, encrypted radio modules, and notebook fragments. Even though heat damage had warped much of the casing, several pages remained legible, revealing rotation schedules and stored communication frequencies for nearby units. This material was secured immediately, placed into insulated containers, and marked for rapid transfer to headquarters. Farther into the clearing, a supply truck still smoldered, its cargo scattered across the ground. Labels revealed propellant canisters, spare optics, and battery packs intended for drones. The loss of these supplies would set back Russian operations in the sector for days. By 6:12 a.m., the site had been fully documented. Every wreck, every fragment, every recoverable device had been accounted for. What began as a simple refueling routine had ended as a complete intelligence windfall. And Ukraine would turn this information into the next phase of their strategy, one designed to reshape the sector far beyond a single forest clearing. By 6:15 a.m., Ukrainian units had withdrawn from firing positions, leaving behind a clearing that no longer resembled a military site but a dismantled logistics hub. The destruction of 27 vehicles, including tanks, infantry carriers, supply trucks, and the fuel carrier, produced consequences far beyond the immediate blast radius. The loss represented the mobility backbone of an entire battalion. Without refueling capacity, armor movements stalled across a 12-kilometer sector. This single strike disrupted more than machinery. It fractured the rhythm of Russian operations. Commanders were forced to reroute convoys, disperse vehicles over larger areas, and adjust refueling schedules to irregular intervals. These shifts created delays measured not in minutes but in 36 to 48 hours, a costly setback for units meant to rotate forward that same week. The psychological effect spread even faster. Crews stationed as far as 19 kilometers from the blast zone reported avoiding forest roads, refusing to group vehicles in standard formations, and idling engines only briefly before repositioning again. Logistics officers began dividing convoys into smaller packets of 3 to 5 vehicles, drastically reducing efficiency. What had once been routine became a constant calculation of visibility, timing, and exposure. Ukrainian analysts reviewed the strike within hours. Every firing angle, drone capture, and heat pattern was studied and cataloged. NATO observers compiled their own assessments, noting the efficiency of a $52,000 ammunition expenditure, overwhelming equipment worth well over $10 million. It became a model of how information dominance can offset numerical disadvantage. 3 months later, a similar Russian refueling site near Bakhmut was hit. The damage was reduced, vehicles were more dispersed, guards more alert, air defense systems closer, but the pattern was unmistakable. Each side was adapting step by step, shaping a battlefield where routine no longer existed. In modern conflict, advantage belongs not to the strongest force, but to the one that learns faster. Ukraine proved that on a quiet morning in September, turning a single clearing into a lesson that would echo across the entire front. When the smoke finally thinned and the last embers cooled, the clearing in Luhansk was no longer just a battlefield. It was a warning carved into the terrain, a reminder that in modern warfare, patterns are dangerous, assumptions are fatal, and even a quiet morning can transform into a turning point when intelligence aligns with timing. Ukraine didn't win that moment through numbers. They won it through observation, patience, and the ability to exploit a single vulnerability with overwhelming precision. And long after the wreckage rusts and the forest grows back, the lesson remains unchanged. Visibility decides survival. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were in command of those Russian units that morning, what would you have changed? Share your thoughts below. And if you want more real tactical breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next analysis.